Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning into the show today. The topic of today's show is confidence through change. Guess what? Change is inevitable, growth is optional. We've heard that saying before, but honestly, it can't be any more true in life. Guess what? Our feelings change, the weather changes. Susan knows that because she's in Seattle. Our friends change, our careers change, even our bodies change. So, who better than to talk about confidence through life's changes other than my next guest? Now, I'm interviewing today Dr. Susan Baumgaertel. Dr. B, as she is affectionately called by her patients, is a patient and physician advocate. She's also a board certified internist and the best selling author of the Menopause Menu, taking the world by storm. Dr. B, thank you so much for coming on the show today, Susan. How are you doing?
Hey Tara, so glad to be here. Thank you for having me. And yes, it's a great overcast day here in Seattle, but there's hope. The weather will change. The sun's going to break through.
That's right. So you're in Seattle. I'm in North Carolina. We're on opposite ends of the United States here. But what I love about this, topic of change, a lot of people are afraid of it, Susan, aren't they? They're terrified of change. And you and I have talked about this. And we've both gone through really, drastic career changes. And it's not always easy to be confident in our abilities, to trust our instincts, or to know what our next move is going to be, right? How do you have the confidence to go through these life changes and really, do it with intentionality and alignment to what you want to accomplish in life? How do you do it, Susan?
I guess that's the proverbial $64,000 question, right? I
Yep.
feel like it's so individualized, and I know that each person is going to have a different journey in terms of what change they're facing. I do find that, there's sometimes not a lot of premeditation or predestination. You're kind of in the middle of a change and then you react to it. And I think if you keep that open mind and look about kind of the future or what's right around the corner, that can be very helpful because it can sometimes feel completely overwhelming, like there is no around the corner. And you just have to, dare I say the word, have faith, but you really do have to take a breath. You have to pause and you have to say, look back in your life. I bet you anything, there are so many changes you've already navigated that you may have forgotten because now you're on to the next challenge. But if you really kind of go back to when you were emotionally distraught or challenged by that change, maybe if you remember you didn't think you could do it, well, you've done it again. So I think you have to have faith in yourself. You have to have confidence. You have to pause and breathe and realize that everyone else probably is in a similar situation.
Yes, I think it's so important and key, and I feel like, we should emphasize, our brains, they're built for survival, right? We're not necessarily built to go after our biggest, wildest dreams, and we're geared for that survival, right? But in order to really have the confidence, we do have to have that self belief. We do have to believe that we're made for more. I think that's really important too, and not just settling, not just surviving, because we can go beyond that, right? We're more than capable of just surviving. And I feel like when we embrace change, we start to go in that higher level mindset a little bit, where we're actually trying to thrive instead of just survive. What do you think about that?
I think you've hit that on a nail on the head. When you look at children, and if you have a child or children, they're changing rapidly. We're talking growth spurts, physically changing. Their brains are developing for quite a few years. We don't question that, but as adults, we feel like, well, we've reached a certain plateau or gotten a certain position or place in life, and if only everything is just calm and just we're just going to kind of freeze it right here and I'm good. No, it will always change. And, what better than, in my profession, the human body, which is going to change as you age. And I think that that's something that is daunting. It's a fact of life. And I think you don't have to necessarily accept all of the negative parts because not all change is great, but you can adjust and adapt, and then you can kind of flip the script. You can spin it so you can reclaim that part that you feel is valid and empowering. So we have to remind ourselves that we've been changing our entire lives.
That is so key. Again, so many people are just terrified of change, but it's always happening, right? And it's within us as we speak. Guess what? Nobody's getting any younger. Hate to break it to you, but we are aging, and that's okay. And you know what? I actually look back at myself, and if I think about myself in my late teens, early 20s, I wouldn't want to go back, even though that was a younger, more vivacious person. I actually like the change that has happened, mentally, physically, and emotionally within me, spiritually even. And I wouldn't go back. So while change is kind of scary because we don't know the end outcome, really, would we go back? I feel like it's such a pivotal time for growth and development, don't you think?
I do. The focus of my recent work has been the topic of menopause, and when you think about life changes or midlife and changing through that phase of a woman's journey, it's really mind blowing. Yeah, I don't want to go back to puberty, but we went through it, and I think that you have to look at. Some things with a little bit of humor. And you learn to actually laugh at yourself because that's part of it too. And you have to, I guess, kind of get this wisdom or this grace because otherwise it's going to be a really bumpy ride. And I'd be happy to talk about menopause more because that's a big change in women's lives.
Yes, let's talk about it because that's a scary thing for a lot of women, right? Oh my gosh, my body is going to change, and we can actually feel it. And there's different levels, right? There's perimenopause, and all of these different things. And, when you start to get that kind of age group, you start to think about these things a little bit more and there's so many uncertainties, right? How's it going to be like for me? Because I knew my mother had it this way and my sister had it this way and my friend or whatever. But ultimately, we don't know how it's going to affect our own bodies. So there's a lot of uncertainty with it. But your book, I love it. I read it, by the way. Big fan.
Oh,
Yes, big fan of your book and your work. What's my favorite part of your book was that it gave me the hope that I can actually minimize some of the negative, impactful symptoms of menopause through nutrition and holistic health. Ah, love that message. Let's talk about that a little bit more. How did you come to that discovery?
yeah, so the menopause menu was kind of brewing in my mind for quite some time. I really drew on a lot of experiences over my 30 years as a physician, much of it helping women and many times helping them navigate. I would say for the viewers listening to us right now, it's important to kind of clarify. It can get confusing in terms of the terminology. So premenopause is before menopause. Usually think someone's in their 20s and 30s. Peri means around, like perimeter. Peri means around around the time of menopause, and so that's typically into the 40s and maybe late 40s. Menopause, by definition, is 12 months after your last period. That's for women who still have a uterus and are having menstrual flow. And so postmenopause, post means after. That's all the years after. So you can be 99, you're still postmenopause. Just means you're done with it. And so this kind of perimenopausal phase where you're not done yet, but you're thinking something's changing, that can be the most disconcerting for many women because they may not be sure what's going on. They may think they're crazy. They can have brain fog. They can feel like they're sick. Maybe their hair's falling out. Things are changing. They don't like it, and they're frustrated. Everyone knows about hot flashes and night sweats and all the sleep stuff that happens. But it's stepping back. It's, I feel that knowledge is power. I feel like if women could get better information at this time or before or kind of ahead, like where you are, and going into that phase, know, like you said, that there are ways to approach this from a nutritional perspective, perhaps, or a mindset, behavioral lifestyle changes, or just, kind of like, yep, this is going to happen. Yep, kind of not that you accept all of the things that may not be fun or
Mhm.
comfortable, but you know that there are options. And, many times, unfortunately, you kind of we go to the mass media and there's a lot of ditches you can fall into. There's a lot of snake oil salesmen. There's stuff out there you just don't need and you don't want, and people are making a buck off of you. And I think that if folks can ground themselves in good, concrete information,
Mhm.
empower their knowledge base, and then kind of share stories and share information. I think we live in an era now where, frankly, days gone by, you never talked about these things. And now we're able to talk about them in ways that are not just hush hush. And many women might feel uncomfortable talking about certain symptoms, or their doctor's too gosh darn busy and they're in the exam room and then whew, hand in the doorknob and they're gone. They haven't even talked about things that are kind of private. So I think if we slow it down, get information out there, allow this to percolate, approach this time frame with a bit more zest and excitement and maybe relief, and then guide women with good knowledge and helpful support in the medical field. I think that's the ticket.
I love that attitude. And, especially the holistic approach. And I like how you brought mindset into that as well. That's not honestly something that really I thought about, but it makes total sense. Um, and, there's going to be times of uncertainty. There's going to be times of, we're questioning what's going to happen, right? I mean, that's just inevitable. It's human nature. But the fact that we can approach this in an intelligent way, through nutrition, through holistic health and hormones, I think that's really important. And to just, go into this change with the right tools, I think that's important too. And not necessarily listening to what mass media says or things of this nature, but actually taking the advice from somebody like you who is a physician and who's gone through this herself, right? I think that's so important that you know what it's like because you went down that path, both professionally and personally, right? So
Yeah.
it's important. I like that perspective.
Someone asked me recently about the fact that, I'm postmenopause. Does that lend more credibility or more understanding? And I had to think about that question for a minute because it reminded me of a number of years ago. One of my patients had asked me, well, if you had, we're talking about a certain kind of cancer, if you had cancer, what would you do? And I kind of did the deer in the headlights froze. I thought, like, well, I guess I wouldn't know unless I had cancer, that particular cancer, what would I do? Because all of my feelings, my whole life may have changed or was about to change. And so how do you put yourself into that position? And I really scratched my head and I said, well, I guess, I can respond clinically and I've taken care of cancer patients and diagnosed cancer and helped people in so many ways related to cancer. But I really couldn't answer the question how would I personally feel because I wasn't there. So fast forward to now, of course, postmenopause. Yeah, been there, done that. But again, I recognize that that's my experience and that's not always what others will have. So I do feel maybe it kind of ups the credibility in terms of adds to my medical knowledge, how I relate to women, how I can advise or share or be empathetic. It doesn't replace knowledge because honestly, just because you've done something, like if you're diabetic, doesn't mean you know how to treat all of diabetes, but it
Right.
just means you know how to manage your own. So it maybe brings up my empathy and knowledge base a level, and I guess in a way allowed me to share a bit more in terms of experiences with my book. And so to me, that was the human touch is very important to me.
Yes, absolutely. It always helps when somebody has walked the walk, right? They've been there and they have that experience that they can transfer that knowledge to others. That's so important. Similar with my book, Confidence. It was a lifelong struggle. I wrote a book and now I'm helping other people overcome it. So that's what it's all about. I love that. But, a lot of my, I would say, connections on social media, a lot of women are, they're entrepreneurs. Um, it's not always easy to have a great diet, right? A lot of women that I know that I'm networked that are in their 30s, they have young kids or approaching 40 like me. And that, they have a young family. Not always easy to find the time, but it's so important though to take care of ourselves and to remember to we need to nurture ourselves and our bodies and put that as a priority. I feel like a lot of women especially don't quite do that, right?
Yeah, when it comes to nutrition, I should take you back for a moment in time. I developed and ran a program called Menu for Change, another change word, back in 2012, and I sunsetted it in 2019 because our company was being taken over and I wanted to close it my way. But it was a program that Menu for Change that really embarked on this great journey with a group of patients, most of them women, who wanted to, they were drawn to this program for weight management, but it really turned into more of a wellness program. And I had nutritionists, acupuncturists, naturopathic docs, exercise physiologists, psychologists, you name it. It was just really a fantastic, very deep, layered program. And I think a big kind of cornerstone was nutrition and kind of nutritional discussions. And it was approached in a very different way because everyone knows what a diet is, right? Now, to me, diet's a four-letter word. Don't say it.
Yeah.
I think of nutrition or nourishment, and it was kind of shifting the kind of mindset of what should I eat instead of like what do I enjoy? What's delicious? What's tasty? What makes me feel really good? Not like, oh, I better not eat out again, or ooh, I have to eat this even though I don't like it. So it was really kind of getting away from that shoulda, coulda, woulda into, something that was more sustainable and actually delightful. And so I approached that topic similarly in my book, The Menopause Menu. Example is so I have 16 chapters, and each chapter is paired to the recipe, so you get a recipe book at the same time. And one of the chapters is on sleep disruption, and the recipe is for a hash brown vegetable quiche. And people are like, what? You mean I have to like cook all that? Like, I want to go to bed. Why am I making a quiche? Well, the whole point was you actually make the quiche ahead of time. You cut it up in squares or, pieces, pie wedges. Maybe put it in the fridge or the freezer. And then in the morning, perhaps when you've perhaps not slept well, or you've tossed and turned, or you're kind of tired and you're really cranky, well, then boom, you pop it in the microwave, and in 1 minute, you have a delicious, nourishing, very satisfying meal. And that light bulb goes on. It's like, oh, I get it. So that's kind of one example of how it's not like eat this and your hot flashes will go away, or eat that and your fatigue will improve. Yes, I do have some of those tips, but I think it's more looking at how does it make you cope with things better, and how can you be more forgiving and nurturing to get that nourishment in a way that's delightful and tasty.
Yes, and not just everybody else's diet plan, right? It's so important. And I feel like a lot of women, especially we get caught up in these fad diets, these yo-yo diets, right? But ultimately they're not sustainable and they're also not a lifestyle change. I think that's another aspect of your book that's very helpful is the fact that it is a lifestyle change. Somebody that's in their 20s or even teens could eat the recipes from your book and see results because it's holistic, it's healthy, it's nurturing, as you said. These are not things that are, diety, these are lifestyle. And it's, the food that we eat, what amazes me about it, it's a program. Everything you put in your body is a program, right? So you're programming your DNA, your cells to either function optimally or to not function optimally. I choose optimal for myself, right?
Oh
Um,
boy,
yeah,
that's so true.
yeah,
Yeah, our brain needs so many things to keep working right. You've heard the term neuroplasticity.
mhm.
Our tissues, our organs, our musculoskeletal system, everything needs to be nourished in ways that are beyond just kind of, oh, how many grams of protein or how many, carbs of the, it's not, it's a recipe, but at the same time, it's a very intentional way to help your body. Like if it's injured, you want to heal. If you have a cut, how do you heal that cut? Well, you're putting, you're cleaning it, you're covering it, you're maybe putting some ointment on it. The things you're actually doing it, but that's very visual, or like it's an accident. Remember what we did. There are things inside of us that aren't very visual and that are not related to an accident. And so I think that we have to think about ways to improve our systems. One example when it comes to menopause is many women are fatigued. And there's a term in medicine called multifactorial. It means there are many different contributors to a symptom or to an illness. So like fatigue, wow, there's so many things that can cause fatigue, right? Who hasn't had fatigue? But in menopause, it can take on a particularly uh, aggressive tone because the sleep disruption or the night sweats or the brain fog or the mental anguish. And so when you think about, for example, a woman's periods changing, and often they're having a lot more periods or a lot of heavy flow ultimately before the time of menopause, you could be losing a lot of iron. Well, with iron loss, you can get anemic. Well, the anemia, you're exhausted. And so that whole vicious cycle. Well, if you think about what things are healthful that nutrition wise can help replace some iron, maybe you need some spinach, some kale, some broccoli, some bok choy, maybe there's some, other protein sources and iron sources. So, it's not like there is a prescription, but if you think about those concepts, how do we heal organ systems or how do we help replenish something that our body needs more of, it becomes a bit less strict and rigid like a diet and more exciting and interesting and enjoyable.
I love that. I'm a big cook. So for those who don't know, I really enjoy cooking. I always have. And one of my favorite things to make is soup. I love soup. And one of the reasons is, I know where the ingredients come from. I put lots and lots of vegetables in there. Lots of, I do use spinach a lot. And just natural sources of those antioxidants, vitamins, and minerals that I know my body needs, right? And it does help me. I've noticed a huge change in my level of energy compared to when I didn't have a healthy diet. It is absolutely night and day. So I think, as hard as it is, especially, being an entrepreneur, owning your own
Yeah.
business, or being a business leader, right?
Yeah.
I feel like that's important too, Susan, because we have to have the energy to lead our business. We have to have the energy to lead our teams, to be there for our clients, to make the amount of money we want. I mean, it really nutrition is paramount to success, don't you think?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to riff off that sentence you just said about needing energy. I think back to a time in my career where I pivoted and I changed from my kind of 25 years of intensive, nonstop 24/7 internal medicine, caring for people, clinical medicine, primary care. And when I stepped away, I was utterly exhausted. I think I'd been tired for decades, but truly, it was just, I had to reclaim my energy before I could do any of that creative thinking.
Mhm.
And I do think that that is very much a parallel to someone in a leadership position to lead and to be setting examples and to kind of make a frame shift. You need to have collective physical and emotional and psychiatric energy. I mean, your mental health is so key. So that energy part was essential. And I think that until I reclaimed that, I really wasn't able to get my creative spirit juiced up and kind of get my vision about the next steps. So that's really important.
Yes, so key, especially again as leaders. We can't expect energy from our teams if we don't have energy, right? Again, it goes back to walking the walk, talking the talk, and nutrition and fitness play a huge role in that. But for me, I think it also helps with habit forming. It helps with discipline, helps with consistency. So I found through my work that it's habits and consistency that people lack in. I don't think people are generally pretty smart,
Yeah,
but we just need sometimes a framework and consistency and some
yeah.
habits, and then all of a sudden, now we can be really successful. But it's not just about financial success, it's about emotional success. How do we feel emotionally? It's about spiritual success. How are we growing, right? Physical success as well. I think incorporating that mind, body, soul into our ultimate success plan is really what sets us apart for that longevity, right? Because again, it's not like a diet. This is not a short term fix. This is a lifestyle change. So important, don't you think?
Yeah, I think the short term is always gonna lead you into the ditch. I think, you do have to react minute to minute, hour to hour. Your day to day goes by really quickly, but, that long-term planning, it really has to be intentional. Not every moment of it, but you really have to kind of look at the framework, where are you going? What do you want to accomplish? What do you want to be? How do you want to grow? How do you want to change? And I feel that again, some people are stuck in a particular job or position, or maybe lack of job, and so they feel overwhelmed. And I think that you have to connect with someone, either a friend or a mentor or a colleague or someone that you maybe a relative, someone who can really kind of get you into a slightly different perspective and allow you that moment to pause and to realize that you can take a breath and see a vision that's different.
I love that. Take a breath and see a vision that's different. Because we have to have our, we have to have a sense of self advocacy. We have to, be responsible for that vision, regardless, because change, like I said in the beginning, is inevitable. It's going to happen. So let's all remember this, that change is going to happen. Set yourself up for success through change. Don't avoid change. Set yourself up for habits for success that can lead to that longevity, right? That is so important. I know this is something that's been on my mind, as far as my age bracket goes, with menopause. So I'm excited. I feel like I have a tool now, a set of tools that can help me through that change. And since I finished reading my book, I gave it to my mom, and then I'll give it to my sister on Thanksgiving, so we'll just keep passing it around. But I think it's really important, no matter who you are, that embrace change and just make sure you have a framework that sets you up for success. And certainly with menopause, if you know anybody in your life that is going through that, even if they're younger, guide them through the nutrition now so that it becomes a habit, so you don't have to learn something new when you are ready for that menopause to come into your life, right?
Yeah, and no need to shame either yourself or others. If you want to scarf down a pizza and have a glass of wine or beer, go right ahead. I think that again, if it nourishes your mind and soul, that's key. Now, if it's every night, you got a problem.
You're speaking my language with wine and pizza. That sounds like my, like, Friday night hurrah. I like that. But it's okay. It's okay to, not be perfect. Nobody's saying, you have to be
Yeah.
perfect, but it's about, moderation of the things that aren't great for you, and then an influx of things that are nourishing and beneficial for you.
I wanted, if we have time, I wanted to read from my book.
Yeah.
And there, if you have it in front of you, it's page 90. So we're talking about change, and we're talking about navigating change and kind of helping others. And there's in my program Menu for Change in the past, there was my favorite visit was the 3-month visit, and it's when a patient would come in and they would, we do some blood work, we check their blood pressure, we measure their weight, and they would dialogue with me. And they've been working with the other team members all throughout. And so this is, you can kind of close your eyes almost and imagine this is a screenplay. So walking into the exam room to greet my patient, she has just stepped off the scale. Me, how are things going? Patient, sighing. Well, I don't seem to be doing very well. I've only lost 4 pounds, so I'm quite discouraged. I don't think this program is working for me. Me. Well, let's review a few things together. How is your sleep? Patient. Oh, I'm definitely getting better sleep now. I only wake up once, but fall back asleep easily. Me. Nice. How is your energy? Patient. My energy's better, which is good news. Me. Glad to hear it. How is your movement routine? Patient. Well, I'm doing the Monday exercise classes. I now go for walks at lunch, and I'm thinking of taking some kickboxing classes. I've always wanted to try that. My back is doing better too, and it no longer hurts when I pick up my dog. Me. Excellent. How is your nutrition going? Patient. I don't skip breakfast anymore. I actually like eating breakfast, which is strange because I never used to. I tried a few new recipes that I like, and now I'm batch cooking sometimes on Sundays, so my work week is less crazy. Who knew I could cook? Me. That sounds quite promising. How is your mental energy and focus? Patient. Great. I'm feeling really productive at work. Even others have noticed. Me. So your sleep is better, your energy's better, you are moving your body more, your back pain is improved, you're having fun with new nutritional ideas, and your mental focus is great. Your labs are also dramatically improved, cholesterol is down, glucose control is better, and your blood pressure today is normal when it used to be borderline high. You've been gaining 3 to 5 pounds every year for a while, and now you've just lost 4 pounds in only 3 months. I'd say that this is all pretty awesome for just 3 months into this new program. Patient, perking up. Well, now that you put it that way, yes, this is the best I've ever done for myself. I'm so excited. I feel great. Smiling, we enthusiastically hug each other as sunshine filters in through the windows.
Ah, I love that. We can
So
be
it's
our biggest critics, can't we?
Well, no, yeah, and to kind of mirror back on someone else, the changes they're making, which are subtle maybe to them, but to me, they're huge, and then reframe it and kind of say, "Wow, you're actually doing great." It's like they come alive. So you can do that with people around you. Heck, we do that with kids, right? So I think as adults, we're less likely to. It's just really important to see those little things that can add up because change can be pretty incredible.
It is, it's transformative. I love that. But that is a perfect example. Another thing to say is that we don't need to put our worth on the number that a scale comes up with, right? That is not our worth. That does not in any way represent our worthiness as human beings. And we tend to put so much worth on that, so much weight on that. But ultimately, how are we feeling? What results are we having? We know we're having results, but it's not just about that number. It's about paying attention to really those micro habits too. I'm a big believer in the micro habits, Susan. It could be as simple as replacing mayonnaise on a sandwich with mustard. Over a year, that could lead to a lot of calories. And then over time, it's that micro habit that leads to another habit. Maybe you're walking more because you have more energy, right? So it's so important. Oh, that's lovely. I love that.
Yeah, the scale thing, I tell you, it drives me nuts. Why is it? And I know this will probably resonate with men too, but for women, it really resonates. Why is it? You jump on the scale in the morning, if you gain 3 pounds, like, the day's crap, and it's just, you're down about it. But if you jump on the scale in the morning and you've lost your pounds, like, woohoo, everything's great. Why is our self worth wrapped up into that number? It's not okay. Call it societal, call it pre programmed, call it just our experience in life, but we need to get away from that. That doesn't define who we are. That doesn't define our value. And that sure shouldn't kind of, hold us hostage to a kind of mental downward spiral that we don't need for that day.
Especially if you're working out. And I do a lot of resistance training, right? So I might gain muscle, but you know what? Muscle, I'd rather have more muscle than body fat, right? So the scale might not see it that much of a difference if I'm gaining muscle, but it's okay. That's the result I want. And I think a lot of women too, they just look at that number and it doesn't matter if it's muscle or if it's water. But we need to change that mentality, and that's like an older mindset. We need to get rid of that and get on to just a new healthy lifestyle change, I think.
Very much agree. Yeah.
I love that. It's wonderful. Well, Susan, what is the best way to get a hold of your book? I know it's on Amazon, and I will certainly share the links as well. But best way to get a hold of you and your book?
Yeah, so the Menopause Menu, you definitely can get it on Amazon. If you're in my neck of the woods, you can have a book party. I'm doing one a couple days from now, and just really fun to see people in person. But Amazon it is for now. And I love when people connect with me. I love to collaborate and network. So my business website is mymdadvocate.com. And for people who just want to get more information on menopause, I have a free website, which is menopausemenu.com. So lots of goodies there.
I love that. Wonderful. Well, I encourage everybody listening to buy Susan's book, buy it for yourself, buy it for someone in your life that could benefit from it, which would be any woman. So, thank you so much for being an amazing guest on our show today. And we will see you all on the next episode. Take care.